First of all, we must thank the new University of Lisbon for accepting this initiative. Thank you very much. It's not the first time, it's not the second time. You are always a very open university. I must confess you and tell you a very small story. A long time ago, when I was young, at a point I even thought of joining this new university. Because I joined it, I was professor here in economics, but there was a new school, law school, that was about to be created. I was in the first group that structured that new school, but finally I decided to remain where I was in my old Lisbon University. Anyway, having taught here in a wonderful school, the one of economics and management, I can tell you it's not only a very good school, but a wonderful university. Open-minded university, international, ecumenical university. That's why it was easy for you, the rector, to accept this idea, this brilliant idea coming from our dear friends, the ambassadors, women ambassadors coming from all over the world. The second point is this. When I really took office 2 years and 4 months ago, I received in an audience a small group of women ambassadors. And they told me, you don't know, Mr. President, how many we are already in Portugal. And I didn't know. I didn't know. I was about to know. And I was told they were not the majority, unhappily, but a large number. And this number increased for 1 year and a half, more than 20. There were almost 30 at a point. So that means 40%. It was almost 40% of all ambassadors resident in Lisbon. And I suggested that they should not only have their own group, but organize a seminar. And the first subject was women and diplomacy. Well, it was a success. It was a huge success. And this was still in 2016, by the end of 2016. And then I told them, they themselves, they said to me, no, we must have a second one. And they chose the subject, women and leadership. This one was held in Cascais, in the Citadel at Cascais. It was another huge success, with entrepreneurs, with people coming from the state, civil service, companies, and civil society. And then it came to the third subject and third seminar. And of course, the subject had to be digital transformation, because it was a subject very much discussed in our society. I don't know how many seminars have I already presided, opened or closed about this subject. 2, 3, 4 days ago, I was in Gulbenkian Foundation to discuss this same subject, but under another point of view. The fears that spread all over the world concerning this 4.0 revolution. Because it's not only the new digital era, it is the challenge of terrorism, the challenge of insecurity, the challenge of migration, the challenge of changing economic, social, and cultural structures, all together at the same time. And this creating fears in many societies, even in Europe. and creating new movements, either organic or inorganic movements, new parties, new trends, very emotional and sometimes irrational attitudes and reactions, and the kind of a situation where people feel disturbed by new realities. Well, so happily you had this third seminar. You were also very happy because some of your colleagues, men, well-known ambassadors, I see some of them here, not all of them, not all of them. I'm just paying attention to the absent, and in next National Day celebration in Ponta Delgada, I try to ask them what happened to them, forgetting the power of their women colleagues. And the subject is really very, very important. Of course, people can ask themselves, why is this revolution so different from the others? But is it different from the others? In a sense it isn't, in another sense it is. In a way it isn't. We didn't leave the other revolution. At least we didn't leave some of them. And the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century was a heavy one. Very, very heavy one. It changed structures. It caused social problems, strong, heavy social problems, even radical ideologies and doctrines. Don't forget that Marxism, in a way, is one of the results of this Industrial Revolution. The so-called mass parties that appeared in the second half of the 19th century are a result of this revolution. It was a long-lasting revolution and a difficult one for Europe, of course, for Europe. And then we had quite a change in the 30s, in the 20th century, with the change in the financial sector, in the financial markets. It was quite a change. The depression, the new policies, the war, in a sense, one of the effects of this change, nationalistic, xenophobic, very radical and self-defense movements and attitudes that appeared in Europe. So in a sense, every revolution like this one has opportunities, you said it, the Vice President, but it has also some negative and troubling effects. But then there is the difference. The difference is that the world is different. That's why our dear President is not here today. Why? Because she's celebrating in Paris the fact of Colombia joining the OCDE. This is new. This is new. It's globalization. It's a new space and a new timing. Time is different today, and space is different. Space is different because it's global. And time is different because it is quicker. There is the acceleration of changes. Scientific, technological, economic, financial, social, political, even cultural changes. Usually one is used to say that cultural changes are slow. Of course they are slow, but not as slow as they used to be. And altogether these changes, with expectations, people have high expectations. Because there was a change in the media, and the new technologies in the media create expectations all over the world. And many of these expectations are impossible to fulfill. So, high expectations, strong difficulties, high acceleration. At the same time, sectors of societies that are not able to join the change. This happened with the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century. People are left behind because they are too old, because they don't have enough qualifications, because they have economic, financial, social difficulties. And these sectors are in some societies, not in all societies, but in some societies are sectors that feel themselves in a situation of despair. And you look at the voting in many countries, and the electorate that is deciding elections is an electorate in despair. They are afraid of the future. They want more protectionism. They want more self-defense, both physical, economic, cultural. They're not so open-minded as we think they should be. And older generations react that way, because they know that the opportunities are much more for younger people than for older people, for younger countries than for older countries. And this creates new cleavages. From time to time I used to speak of the social age cleavages in Portugal. In this community, all the Portuguese react in a sense. They say, what is happening to us? Are we going to be left in the ghetto? Are we still able to join the changes ahead or not? And the younger generation just coming to labor market say, but what kind of heritage do we receive? And they blame the older generation because they do not understand. They don't know even recent history of Portugal. It's very common. While professor, I was used to listen to my students, and they would tell me, how was it possible to have this kind of Portugal far away from our expectations? And when I was telling them about dictatorship, about the revolution, they said, we were born after it. We cannot understand it. Please do tell us. And I had to tell them that Portugal faced 4 changes at the same time: decolonization, democracy, joining the European integration, and changing 4 times our economy in less than 30 years. I saw it all. I saw it all. I knew the dictatorship quite well because my father was a member of the government dictatorship. I lived the revolution. I voted the Constitution. And I saw all the presidents and prime ministers one by one during 40 years. But it's hard to explain to someone at the age of 20, what is it all about? They won't understand. Well, coming to the changes, but we must face these changes rationally, not irrationally. And that's the fight today. We must make the world more predictable. Now the world is unpredictable, because where we had 2 superpowers and then just one, we have a tendency, a trend to many powers. One of them is, of course, bigger than the others, but many others that appear. 2 of them, of course, stronger. And then other medium-sized powers. And the interaction among them is unpredictable. And the reaction of their own electorates when they are democracies, or their own leaders when they are not democracies, sometimes is unpredictable. Of course, there are cases of predictability where the systems are more stable than others. And we must make the world more rational, which is different. I'm at ease, as you know, because I'm supposed to be the president of emotions. But all my studies, all my career was mostly a rational one. A law professor must be rational. Of course, any human being must be emotional. Otherwise, it's just half of a human being. Nobody is just fully rational. But in a sense, that's the problem we must face. Examine the problems, the challenges. Find ways out for those problems, as you discussed it today, with the help of 2 sectors of state, which is very, very important. And you found out something that appears to be obvious, but it is worrying: inequality between men and women, men and women, all over the place. Yesterday, we discussed in Portugal a study about inequality of gender concerning wages, labor conditions. We did already know it, but it was useful to see the figures. You spoke today of the fact of having, in Portugal, it is 13% of women just in technological high studies. But in Europe, 17% is the average. It's not different from ours. And in other continents, in other countries, the same or worse. And not only in universities or polytechnics, also in basic studies. And that is worrying. Because you said it, education is the key. The key is education and the role of women in world development. Altogether, you cannot separate. Altogether. That's why I have already a suggestion for the next seminar, which will be not digital transformation women, but education and women. Education and women. Well, when I was coming through this university, I was wondering whether it could be either this one, or migrations, another problem, or healthcare and women. But I still have more years in my term. So, we're speaking of 2019, I still have 2020, and the beginning of 2021. We can always anticipate your seminar, so that we could have it before March the 9th, not to force me to run again just on account of you. And when I say on account of you, I must confess you that recently I'm feeling also in a kind of despair when I received the credentials. Yesterday I received 2 new ambassadors, resident ambassadors, and 2 new non-resident ambassadors. Well, I can tell you, man. Our dear friend from Morocco replaced by a man. Well, very competent, but a man. And little by little, I see you leaving. I don't know what happened. I did my best to treat you well. You were very well received in Portugal. What more can we do to avoid your heads of states and governments to replace, as they are doing it systematically, women by men? And at the end of the day, yesterday, I went into despair. No other additional reasons for it. But this one was a strong reason. What is happening? And I know that some of you are about to leave. And most of you, not all of you happily, replaced by men. That makes the difference. Because this is the strongest group in the ambassadors living in Lisbon, far away from the other groups. And it is a pity if instead of about 30, we start having 20, and then 15, and then 12, and then 10. It becomes an island surrounded by men. It's not good. Well, in a sense, thank you for your contribution. Congratulations for your conclusions. Thank you for the fact that you decided to do it in a school, and happily at the end of the year. So too many exams and too few students, but that's the way it is. I know it as a professor. But anyway, so many people coming from civil service, from companies, from everywhere. And don't forget, next year, in spring, that usually is beautiful in Portugal. This is cloudy, happily rainy and cloudy. It's very good for the fires, very good. But were I not a president from a non-confessional country, I would have said it's a blessing. No, I won't say it. It would be misjudged. But anyway, in a sense, next year, next spring, if you really agree with me, education and women. And please remain in Portugal. Don't leave. Thank you.